First of all, I would like to really welcome everyone here, the audience that tuned in that I cannot see, but I want to really give you a warm welcome for joining the session. I also want to welcome the panelists in this webinar. For the people who don't know me, I have been in the industry for the last 25 years, the last 15 years in investment in healthcare and life sciences. Most recently, I was in pharma for nearly 9 years, investing in technology in pharma, including technology in the clinical trial space. My name is Rana Lonnen, and I have the pleasure also to be a senior advisor for QRDI and a partner to everyone here in the ecosystem. Just as to set the stage for this webinar, as you know, this is the topic on how pharma is rewriting clinical trial with Agentic AI. We will, for the people who are expert in the field and the people who aren't, I think everybody can leave with a good kind of information about what's happening in pharma on AI in clinical trials behind the big walls of pharma. Also, we will shed light into the capabilities and strength of Qatar as a market for clinical trials. We learn more about what really pharma wants in this space that is moving very fast, the space of technology, and how can we really position Qatar through collaboration with industry to really become where clinical trial can become central capability from now until 3 to 5 years from now. And for this, I have the fantastic panel, really the perfect combination. We invited Abhishek Chatterjee. Abhishek and I, we were former colleagues at Novartis. He's a pharma expert in clinical trials and also in AI. So he brings the technology aspect to clinical trials. He led a transformation at Novartis clinical operations, and now he is at Novo Nordisk in Denmark. Abhishek will introduce himself when he presents. I have also the pleasure to introduce Dr. Abdelraouf and Mohammed Ali Hamid, who come from the clinical trial operation and execution side. Dr. Abdelraouf is a clinical toxicologist, pharmacologist, pharmacovigilance between the US and the UK in his previous life. And now he's leading the clinical trial operations in Hamad. We will hear from Dr. Abdelraouf the clinical trial perspective from Hamad and Qatar side. Mohammed Ali Hamid, Mr. Mohammed Ali Hamid, he's been in the field also for the last 2 decades in management leadership in clinical trial operations, previously as Chief Operating Officer at the Canadian Population Health Institute. And he brings his expertise in the field to Sidra. He leads the core facilities and clinical trial in Sidra. So we will hear also from another major hospital in Qatar in terms of the strength and capabilities. And I will introduce my last panelist, Professor Rayaz Malik. Professor Rayaz Malik brings to this panel the expertise and opinion as a clinical researcher in Qatar. He's a professor of medicine at Weill Cornell, senior consultant at Hamad in endocrinology. And I have to really share also the recent news that Dr. Rayaz Malik has been voted for the 3rd time running professor of medicine in clinical research activity within Qatar. So he speaks really well to his contribution, and he brings the lens of a clinical researcher in Qatar to the conversation. Also, Professor Rayaz is an entrepreneur in the field. So I think the way it's going to go is we start with a presentation with Abhishek, and then we move into a engaged discussion between the panelists. And then we received a lot of questions from the people who registered, so we will do a Q&A, but also include some of the questions from people who registered. So I will now pass the mic to Abhishek, who will present. Maybe the first slide, some people know them very well. They are expert in clinical operations, but I think the objective is to bring everybody at the same level of knowledge before we really talk about AI. So Abhishek, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rana, and thank you everybody for inviting me. This is really a humble opportunity for me also to first introduce myself, but also to share the stage with such a renowned panelist. And I'm really thankful to everyone involved in organizing this. Before I go into the topic, a quick introduction about myself. I know Rana did an amazing job in introducing me, but quickly, like I have 14 plus years of experience in pharma, two large pharma and also some pharma consulting, Novartis and Novo Nordisk. I have also the pleasure of working in different countries so that I can also understand how different headquarters and different pharmas and also different cultural orientation work. So I have stayed in Switzerland. Now I'm currently based out of Denmark. I was in India, and then I also stayed a small stint in United States. I have experience both in clinical and digital. So in my last job in Novartis, I also had the pleasure of running two large cardiovascular trials globally, where we had to recruit 17,000 patients. So it was not an easy task, and I will go through the details in terms of how clinical trials is conducted. But I have also worked across trial design, site and patient recruitment, study startup. I have led big scale feasibilities, but also I have digital experience across building AI products in terms of big pharma, accelerating clinical trial, use of AI, so on and so forth. And currently in Novo Nordisk, I am leading a space called strategic design and planning, where I'm accountable from early design all the way to starting a clinical trial. And I lead a digital team of 50 plus digital enthusiasts and business SMEs. But again, that was about me. I go through the details of the agenda today, but I want to really say thanks a lot for inviting me here. I'm really happy and excited and humbled to share with such a renowned panelist. What we will do in the next 18-ish minutes, I will go through what is a clinical trial, because as Rana said, we have a diverse audience. So quickly set the scene of what a clinical trial is. Then what are the traditional playbook and how we do, and also where we struggle today, but also how the frontiers is changing with AI and agentic AI coming into picture. So these are the three things on a very high level that I will try to touch in the next 18-ish minutes and so. What is a clinical trial, right? I think we all are hearing about clinical trial and assume we all know clinical trial. But just to take a step back, the medicines that we take in a day-to-day life, or we or our friends take, goes through a very rigorous testing, and it goes through years and years of testing to prove that the drug works and is safe for a human to consume. That entire gold standard process is termed as clinical trials. Now, without going to very detail, today if you see the industry, the clinical trials are divided into 4 phases: phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. We can talk about phase 2A, 2B. There are a lot of nuances to this, but let's stick at a very high level. Phase 1. Phase 1 is something where we actually work with few healthy volunteers and see if the drug is really safe. When we say safe, is we want to check if there are any side effects, what is the maximum tolerable dose that we can give to a patient. Like, it's also, we try out many different dose escalation or acceleration that we say, like, if you see today a drug is out in the market with 100 mg, maybe that is something you see as an end product. We try starting testing the drug with, let's say, 10 mg, then 30 mg, then 70 mg, and then we reach to 100 mg and say this is the maximum limit where the drug is safe, and then where there is no side effect. So that phase 1 is more toward that, and we start with a very small population set, like 20, 80, 100 directionally volunteers. Once we have passed that stage and we say the drug is safe, then we go to more what we call the efficacy testing. Does the drug really work? Then we go to a bit broader range of patient population, and we go toward continuous monitoring of safety and whether the drug is really efficacious for us to use. Then we move a bit further, and that's where the pivotal phase of a phase 3 would have heard in different phases. A phase 3 is where we test with large number of patient population. 1,000 to 5,000 is a directional number, I said, depending on whether it's an oncology trial, whether it's a cardiovascular trial, whether it is an obesity trial, the number might differ. But the whole purpose of the phase 3 is, does this drug really work better than the current treatment or the placebo? And we need evidence to prove it to the regulatory or the health authorities. Once we are reached this stage, we get a green light to launch the drug. And then there are post-market, what we call the phase 4 is, once the drug is out in the real market, we continuously try to say, are there any side effects? What are the other indication we can work the drug on? So on and so forth. One of the very simple example, a funny example I can also give, in Novo Nordisk, you would all heard of Ozempic. The first intent goal of Ozempic was diabetes. And in the post-market, we saw there was a weight loss. And there came the weight loss trial, and now it is used in obesity also. So that's where the phase 4 is super important to understand. not just the existing biomarker and the patterns that we have got approved from, but what are all the other indications that we can work on. So very high level, this whole structure is what we call the clinical trials. We have set the ground of what a clinical trial is. What happens in the industry? Till today or yesterday, things are changing, and with LLM and large language, things are changing with the speed of light. But what happens in the industry? Maybe I ask 3 questions. There's a bit of cheat book on the left side people can see. Do you know what is the percentage of drug that fails in a clinical trial? So if a company or globally we are trying 100 drugs, how many of them will fail? Do you know what the average time it takes from phase 1 to the phase 3, that is to approval, to get a drug approved? Do you even know what is the cost of a single drug that it takes for a pharma to bring to market? You can try putting your answers on, in the chat. I know we can see it, but it's just a question for you. When over a period of time, this has actually ballooned. And to give you a number, if you're not surprised, 88% of the drug in clinical trial actually fails. It takes more than 10 years for a pharma company to bring a drug from phase 1 to approval. It takes around $1 to $2 billion, depending on the therapeutic area, for a single drug to be successful. So you can see from here, like the burden on the pharma as well as on the patient is humongous, because if 88% of a drug directionally fails, and it takes $2 billion almost to build one drug, so you can do a calculation of how burdensome and how cost heavy this whole effort is, and think like this 10 year is such a long journey, and majority of a trial fails in phase 3. So you have already lost 70% of your time, and in your 7th or 8th year, you realize the drug is not going to make it to the market. So it's a really humongous effort that we go toward and take it. I'd like to take a step back. So there are 6, if I may categorize, there are many more, but from my point of view, there are 6 deep-rooted challenges that make traditional trials slow. One is the timeline. So generally it takes 10 to 15 years for discovery to approval of a drug. And someone to plan for the next 10, 15 years from the get-go is a very humongous task. And it also requires a lot of precision, a lot of risk that someone takes, like a pharma company takes or a sponsor take, but it takes a lot of time to plan across this 10 years. Cost is such a humongous cost. So a lot of this early money is actually put at risk, because we want to bring the drug to the market and serve our patient, but actually we're testing it at risk because there's a high probability we'll not be able to bring the drug to the market. Patient recruitment. The whole meat of the whole bone in terms of what you're seeing is recruiting the patient. So ultimately what matters is, can you bring a patient to the trial? And is the patient able to take the drug and come with a positive efficacy? 85%, you will be amazed, 85% of the trial miss enrollment timelines. And we see timelines expanding, cost ballooning, a lot of complexity, operational complexity that is getting added. We have data that is fragmented today. So if you see today, sponsor have a different data collecting platform. Different hospitals have different data collecting platform, like they use different technology, they use different standards, different countries are different. So you can think like to bring this all together requires a lot of effort for a sponsor to actually have a data collected, data aggregated, and data put in a format. Then we have regulatory complexity, is like different things are moving in different direction, but we also have a lot of humongous regulatory complexity that overall lead to high failure rate. But for today, if I just put 2 things into perspective and 2 core problems that pharma face today, the first is data fragmentation. Why I say data fragmentation is, if I start from the get-go, if let's say we live in a blue sky where all the data is connected and we have one unified patient record across the globe, we will be in a world where we can run the trials more in an in silico mode, like we know where the trial will be, where the patient will be, and which patient we can bring into the trial, we can not bring into the trial. But that doesn't exist. And since that data is fragmented, that leads to patient recruitment challenges. We see trials not able to get the patient they need. We see the sites and the hospital actually spending a lot of time to identify the patient, and they're not able to do it maybe within the given time frame, especially if you talk about rare disease or more complex disease like in oncology and stuff like so on and so forth. And ultimately, it impacts timeline, it impacts cost, and that leads to higher failure. So this is like the most burning challenge that today we face in our clinical trials, and I think any pharma faces. If we just take a step back I know I was talking very high level, but let's talk into a bit more detail. Let's double click what exactly happens in a clinical trial in a day-to-day life. What happens is, first what we do as a pharma organization, and I'm part of this, I know this is my day-to-day job, we design a clinical trial. Now, when we design a clinical trial, there are very high-level things. I'm not going to health authority and submission around, but we focus on these 4 or 5 things. We try to identify what is the patient population we want to run the trial on, what are the inclusion-exclusion criteria we want to put it, like we want patients who are 18 and above, we want to have patients who have Lp(a) more than 20, we want to have patients who have a BMI more than, let's say, 25. So what is the patient you need? Then how many patients you need to actually prove the drug is efficacious, right? There's statistical mean in terms of how many patients you exactly need to prove the drug is superior as compared to the current standard of care or as compared to, let's say, a placebo drug. And finally, the endpoint, like what do you want to achieve? I want to achieve a reduction in BMI. I want to achieve a disease-free progression for the next 5 years. What do you want to achieve at the end of the drug? Now, based on that, what we do, we have teams in our operations who first try to identify the country. The countries who will be able to provide this patient population, like that we are looking for, who also have the right site infrastructure that can give us the speed, the data consolidation, and things like so on and so forth. And third, what types of health authority, I use the word, but what type of approvals? Do we have a central clinical unit? Do we have decentralized clinical unit? Just to give an example is, there are places, and I'm using something from the US where we say central IRB versus local IRB. So if there is a central IRB, I take approval once centrally, and then all the hospital can run the trial. For a pharma, that is very easy because I take approval once, and then I speed up my operations on the ground. Versus there are places where I need to take local approvals. Local is like every hospital have their own approval bodies. But for a pharma, it's become cumbersome because if I have to run a trial fast, I don't have the time to go to every hospital to take approval. Finally, based on that, then we start the site onboarding, activation, and finally, then the site start finding and screening the patient, like who the patient that needs to come on the trial. Now, if I break it into 2 parts, the first part is more, designing a trial is more of a sponsor and pharma related job where they reach out to some of the key opinion leaders in the market, like we have in the panelists, to understand whether the protocol makes sense or not and where they should put emphasis. But the second part is where the opportunity lies, basically in terms from a country and from an infrastructure perspective, is what can we do to make things more lucrative? Because the more lucrative some of these features are, like finding the patient population, the right hospital infrastructure, more central health authority or more central clinical units, the easier and the faster it becomes for us to run the trial. So these are 2 opportunities just to carve it out on a very high level. Now, you know what a clinical trial is. We know how today things happen on a very high level. What is agentic AI all about? I think many of us will be using it, will be hearing it on a very day-to-day basis, but what agentic AI is? A lot of us confuse agentic AI with a chatbot. It is not a chatbot. It is actually an autonomous system which can take actions and which can do things for us on our behalf, the way we ask them to do the things. A few of the examples that I can go through that is really happening today in the industry is adaptive trial design we are going toward. So historically, as I showed you, there is a trial design. We run the trials. We see some safety signals, but then you don't change it. You wait for the trial to finish, and then for the next trial, we take the input back. So we go to a episodic learning, if I use the word. The whole idea with agentic AI is move from episodic learning to continuous learning. And that's what adaptive trial design is more and more evolving toward, where on real time we understand where the safety signal are, where the dose signal are. Do we need to change some of our parameters based on the interim trial data? And do we need to make things less complex for our patient? So that's more adaptive trial design. And there agentic AI is playing a real game changer because it's changing the whole data collection to being more episodic, like end of a trial, to more continuous feedback loop. There's also initiative, I think in May, that FDA launched out for also different pharmas and hospitals to collaborate in terms of how we can be more AI driven, and FDA is also now opening up their hoods toward this. Patient matching and recruitment. One of my hobby horses. We have different health systems, different health record, and different data providers. How can we use the agent to really mine the different electronic health data records sitting in different hospital networks and identify the patient even before we start the trials? And then rather than finding a patient, it become an opt-in, opt-out discussion saying, we know you are eligible for this trial. Will you be interested in this trial? And then we are actually also bringing the power in the hand of the patient, saying they don't have to spend time to undergo the test, know whether they're eligible or not, and things like that. It's more in the hand of the patient to take a decision. Like, I have access to your health record. I know you're eligible for this trial because we have run some agents and some large language models to understand whether you will pass the inclusion-exclusion criteria or not. Will you be interested? Real-time safety monitoring. This is something like we are really going toward deep into, is like continuous adverse event detection within a trial and patient signal detection in terms of where should we put more effort on or not. Today, we have a lot of dashboard, let's say, sitting in a pharma where we see through different things. But with Agentic AI, we are moving toward more real-time signal detection when a trial is running. Data harmonization. I don't know how many of you are close to data, but just to give you an example, the data we collect in a clinical trial is in a format called CDISC. The data that sits in hospital network is in a data format called FHIR. FHIR and CDISC are two different, let's say, nomenclature that don't talk to each other. So just to give you a basic fundamental challenge. But now with Agentic AI, we are seeing a big change with large language model where CDISC and FHIR could be merged seamlessly. And this is where the world is going in terms of diluting the borders between clinical trials and hospital data and bringing it more closer. Finally, regulatory. I think I'm seeing big time change in FDA, and we all are seeing in terms of like accelerating some of this AI initiative and all. Biomarker discovery. This is super cool. We are historically trained in terms of identifying the endpoints and then observing the biomarkers that are there. And somebody, let's say, then after when the data trial is submitted, do this biomarker analysis. Now with Agentic AI, real time, we can see how the patient biomarkers are working. And we can also do a lot of predictive biomarker, especially in cardiovascular, because I was part of one of this back in my days, in what are the sequence of events that will lead to the first episode of a cardiovascular event. And we can do this prediction on patient data and can really help patients there. Finally, I want to also call it out before I move forward. It's like, this is not just like a fairy tale in the market and a North Star project. A lot of different pharma are going toward it. I've quoted some example here on the screen, like Pfizer is doing AI-powered patient recruitment. Novartis is doing a lot of agentic protocol optimization. Roche is doing, AZ is doing. I know Novo Nordisk and so public news went into a big OpenAI deal where we are collaborating with OpenAI to accelerate some of our clinical development lifecycle. Eli Lilly went into a big deal with NVIDIA to use their AI agentic hub to basically accelerate the entire clinical development pipeline processes and all. So things are really moving in that direction where people are putting and pharma companies are putting a lot of effort and, to be honest, money into a lot of these cases so that it can help us in long run. Finally, a bit more from my side. I think I showed this image before, but I also try to pull back the opportunities that we have here. So if you really want to foster AI and help clinical trials to set up, I think some of it is my personal reflection. We can at a country level set up a health authority AI engine that can take any protocols coming from pharma and can really design against the country infrastructure and patient records to say, do we have the patient? Do we have the right infrastructure to take this? Can we take multiple trials in parallel? We will see cases where multiple different sponsors are running the trial on the same indication or therapy area. What we want to prioritize, how we want to prioritize. We can take more than 10 trials at a go because we have the infrastructure and the patient available. But if we have this information, let's say from a get-go, this also helps the pharma, but it also helps the hospitals network out there in the country. Patient-facing AI portal, the second thing. Today, if you see, it's more finding trials, and it's more like going to the hospital and the doctors talk to the patient that there is a trial that exists. Do you want to be part of the trial? But how can we literally pivot that and have patient-facing portal where patient can really know what are the trials that are running into the country? They have the electronic health record. They also know which trial they're eligible to participate into, and it more become a patient approach. Like, I, as a patient, I know there is a trial I'm interested into. I know I'm pre-screened. I will make it to the trial. It's more my interest in terms of going into the trial. And that will alleviate a pain of this whole recruitment journey, because today it's the site trying to find the patient versus is the patient knowing which trial they have available and they can opt in if they wish for. And it's really changing the way we are working today. And this can only happen, to be very honest, I don't think a pharma can do this much. It can only happen from inside a country and hospital networks where they can facilitate some sort of health data to bring this together. Finally, a clean and AI-ready hospital data, like one of the biggest pain. But if we have one AI layer to curate all the hospital data, at least in a network, and make it AI-ready, will be super lucrative for a sponsor, because as a sponsor, I could just bring my design. I can know if the network can run the trial or not. And then the feasibility, which currently take months, could be shifted down to days. So these are the three things I believe could be done. Finally, this is just a quote to end with, like, the window to lead is now, and those who will act first will define the next era of medicine. Thank you. That's from my side, and thanks a lot for the time and the opportunity. Back to you, Rana.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. This is very, very interesting. And before we move to the panel, I just wanted to see if any of the panelists have any questions for Abhishek, or I'm not sure. I don't think we have any questions from the floor, but I wanted to give the chance to the panelists also to ask some questions, if there's any. So maybe let me ask that question, Abhishek, here. You mentioned about the various buckets where agentic AI is transforming, whether recruitment in terms of like patient finding and, for example, endpoint optimization and all of that. I mean, I remember very well from many conversations we've had in the past, solving within the bucket could be somehow manageable. It's really solving across the buckets, because these different buckets needs to talk to each other. Yeah. And I just would like to really hear your opinion, because the orchestration between all of them, this is really what needs to be unlocked to really enable creation of value and agentic AI really just flowing across all of them. And I think this is really one of the biggest challenges that we used to discuss back in the days.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Like, if I take a step back and see, I think we talk a lot about AI, but I think we also need to talk about data infrastructure as a strategic asset. And when we say data infrastructure, it's more, I'm talking about the hospital data infrastructure, because the real patient data sits there. So also, how can we help our, let's say, the doctors and the physicians and the primary investigators sitting in the hospital by giving them also a proper data infrastructure where they also don't need to spend weeks and months to identify the patient, but they have it in their fingertip where they can know which patients qualify a trial, but even which patients have a certain disease progression. So that's one side of the coin. And to answer your other side, today different sponsors, as you said, are putting effort to basically accelerate it. But these are all, if I say, very island efforts, like they're doing in their own pocket. Somebody is doing with OpenAI, somebody is doing with Anthropic, somebody is doing internally, somebody is doing externally. But we don't have that single harmonization layer, at least centrally, that can help them accelerate. And I know we are talking about them in different pockets and different forums, that we need that central aggregator who can help both the pharma as well as the country organizations to really accelerate, but we are missing them. But let's say there is a country who has a data orchestrator centrally, and that has connected all their hospital data records. And as a sponsor, I just talk to the central health authority or clinical authority body, and I say, this is the 3 protocols I want to run in next 1 year. What do you think about it? Rather than going to, let's say, the 10 hospitals within that country, from this central health, I get the answer saying,
operational.
First protocol, very easy for us to run. We can really bring X patient in Y amount of time. Second, very complex, rare disease, but we still see some of the probability of success here. That actually changed the game, because that will be very lucrative for us sitting in centrally, because today we have to go to so many sites and so many countries, and this really operationally consuming for us, and that will really alleviate the pain from both ends.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for that. And I think questions will come as we start the conversation. Now I really want to move to, we heard the pharma side. And I would really love to introduce the panelists on the Qatar side. And then really we'll start looking at the capabilities and strength Qatar has in terms of clinical trial capabilities, activities, infrastructure, also the country as a whole. And then really start to think, understand better what pharma wants and see how we can match these two together to this better future. So I would love to ask each one of the panelists. I start with Dr. Abderraouf. Please introduce yourself, but also tell us about the clinical trial unit in Hamad, and we move in turns.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Abderraouf. I'm the Director for Clinical Trial Unit Operations. My background is a pharmacy background. I've done my PhD, my master's, everything from UK Aberdeen University. Have got experience in medication safety, drugs in pregnancy, pharmacovigilance, and quality and safety. I am the Director for Clinical Trial Unit, which was recently established. I would say it would be recently because it's been 1.5 years since we have started this. It doesn't mean that there are no clinical trials in HMC. We do have clinical trials. It's just a matter of they were doing in silos. Everything was happening in silos. We're putting everything together. So it's a big unit. We have got around 22 rooms and we have a staff of around 28 from different departments. We have clinical nurses, research nurses, phlebotomists, pharmacists, and we do have admin and coordinators. So this is what we do here. And we've got almost 29 studies ongoing or completed and almost 13 to 14 studies in pipeline. So this is all
that's a mixture. That's a mixture between clinician initiated trials within Qatar and sponsors. Okay. Yep.
Studies.
Yep. Okay. That's great. And Dr. Abderraouf, is there any particular disease areas or therapeutic areas that are mostly in demand, or maybe that the clinical trial unit caters for more than others?
So what is happening right now is not like other countries where a clinical trial unit is specialized in one area. We are open to everyone. Right. But if, as you asked me, we do a lot of studies in cardiology.
Yeah.
We have studies from cardiology, immunology, and we have studies from neurology as well. So oncology studies we do have oncology, but it doesn't happen at the site because the type of patients probably it has to be done
yes.
at the hospitals. So that's what it is. And we are we got 2 units. One is clinical trial unit as well as a precision medicine on the other side. So we work hand in hand to see if there is any component of genetic involvement. So probably that would be our future to look at it, how we can combine the genetics with the clinical trials.
Okay, thank you. Muhammad Ali.
Pleasure to be here. First of all, Rana, thank you for the invite, and Abhishek, thank you very much for setting the stage with a great high-level presentation. So my name is Mohammed Hamid. I'm the Executive Director of Research Core Services, and part of my portfolio is our genomic services, data science, cell and gene therapy, and clinical trials as well. My own personal area of research interest is innovation, AI, and organizational behavior, specifically related to healthcare. So this topic is very, very near and dear to my heart. So Sidra's clinical trials office is also relatively recent. We started a couple of years ago, and in that time we've grown quite significantly. We currently have 5 active clinical trials. These are mostly industry-sponsored clinical trials, but we also have several investigator-initiated trials that are in the pipeline as well. Now, Sidra is a pediatric tertiary care hospital, so most of the patients that we see are children, and and they're presenting with rare and complex diseases, and this is really the area that Sidra specializes in. So it's more of a specialized patient population than a broad, general, large-scale clinical trials that an organization like HMC would expect to see.
And in terms of the trials that you have that are sponsor-initiated trials, are they in a particular phase of development? Is it mostly phase 2, phase 3?
Yeah. So we have mostly phase 2 and 3 trials, and that's what we have in the pipeline as well. But we now are initiating a trial that is phase 1 as well in the cell and gene therapy realm. Because again, the type of field that we're in, you cannot shy away from phase 1 trials as well, especially when it comes to cell and gene therapy. Again, small patient populations, but highly specialized trials. So obviously, when you start out as a unit, you want to gain some experience with the phase 2, phase 3 type trials before getting into the phase 1 and first in human type trials. So we're getting to that point now where this is really a necessity that our patient population requires.
Thank you, Professor Rayes Malik. You're very active on the clinical research front in Qatar. We would love to hear more from you.
Okay, so thank you, Rana. Sometimes I'm actually criticized for being honest.
Nice.
Okay, I'll tell you something, right? Last week, I was approached by a very large pharmaceutical company, and they were interested in doing a study of patients who had diabetes. And, you know, they still went through this whole dance with me about asking me as an expert, how many patients do you have? How many patients fulfill a certain criteria? You know, and honestly, I can tell you, I had to guess, right? And Abhishek, you know, kind of everything he said resonated with me, because I've been saying this for the last 5 years, 10 years. We need Access Cerner, which is across Qatar, right? We do not need to develop new software and spend 2-3 years developing new systems. There are already systems off the shelf, I'm sure, that are available to us. And may I suggest, if Novo Nordisk have some particular agentic AI software that, you know, what they say is, okay, you can be part of this trial, but you know what? We're going to provide you this software, which will stay in-house because there's all these concerns about data leaving the shores of Qatar, but it will help you to recruit, to look at side effects, safety, which is always a concern from the ministry. And actually, very, very important thing I think that Abhishek touched on was this whole thing about responders, non-responders, right? You know, we kind of retrospectively wait for years to work out, but if this thing can do this automatically, it transforms the landscape. So my appeal is that, you know, somebody somewhere, please listen to me, and let's get, you know, the Cerner connected and the data in one single kind of, I don't know, AI
hub, please. Yes.
Hub,
data
please.
lake. Yes. Yeah. No, that's really great. And I think this really brings me back to Abhishek. You touched in your presentation around what really matters for pharma when they look into a country. Linking to what Professor Malik mentioned about this data lake, data hub. Can you share some insights in terms of who's actually managed to do it elsewhere? And I think you probably don't know, Abhishek, but you know, most of the 85% of the population in Qatar is sitting on the same on Cerner, and I know that there is a big initiatives within the country to bring everything into the same data lake to enable that. What else do you need, Abhishek, as a pharma today? Can you first of all just emphasize what Dr. Malik mentioned, the importance of this and what else is needed, because it's not only you have the data lake, now somebody has to manage it. Somebody has to really bring all of the country into one place, because pharma is not going to go and knock on every door. So can you tell us the full kind of how should it look like for this to really work seamlessly and have pharma saying, I'm going to go to Qatar because I'm able to do this and this and that. So basically what would attract you, including what Dr. Malik said?
Thanks, Rana, and thanks, Dr. Malik. Like, really resonated, and thank you for your kind words. Like, I've been talking about this. I know I was talking from perspective of pharma, but I can really understand the burden that we also create for our doctors out there, because I can give you an example. Like, I know for a fact, we go to the same PI, maybe in a difference of a couple of months, and we ask the same question. Do you have this capacity? Can you bring me 5 patients or not? And we ask them with a difference of like 2 months. I know this is so painful. So that's one thing. On our side also, we need to up our game. We are doing a lot of AI and all these big words, but we also need to up our game, in all honesty. Saying that, now coming back to Rana, to your question. As you very rightly said, pharma will not go to every door and knock, but this is also so nice to know, means I was not very close to this. Like, Qatar has 85% of the patients sitting on one network. That's really a big opportunity. So maybe it's just a matter of maybe 3 things if I carve out. First thing is, it's maybe just a matter of also educating out there, right? How we have the data, what shall we do, and educating the right levels in the pharma organization to bring it. Secondly, it needs to be a joint initiative, like someone, and when I say someone, it could be, because as I heard, things exist, country level, it's very easy to create the central data lake and the central layer to just make it available for everyone.
Or coordination,
just coordination effort centrally to just make it available for everyone, so that we also reduce the burden from a hospital and pharma both. So this makes really sense. Only the last thing I will say, somebody has seen actually approaching this back in my days. So we also had, and I'm quoting it, it's nothing wrong. We had a delegation from Hong Kong back in the days in Novartis when I was there, and we met them. They were also trying to approach this like the way we are talking today, doing more things centrally and creating a central, I forgot the name, but Hong Kong created a central clinical trial unit, which was actually helping coordinate with all the pharma, was their approach. They have different challenges, but that was the approach they were also trying to take, because that's like the modern approach and alleviating the pain both from the hospital side and pharma side. So, yeah.
And this is not the clinical trial unit. The clinical trial unit remain in the clinical trial side. It's more of a clinical trial operations coordination to help be like the face just to the pharma, but to the inside of the country.
Yes, and have some tech stuff just to make sure that the orchestration and the data lake and the data layer is ready.
Yeah. And what are you trying to solve for here? Is the study startup time?
It's both. It's not just the startup, but also the recruitment time. It also reduces the burden on the hospitals too, in all fairness, because you don't run trial for one sponsor. You run trial for many sponsors. You have your own run trial. It also saves them a lot of time.
Yep. Okay, and you know, from what you heard from our colleagues in Qatar, with the infrastructure that exists, and I think maybe Dr. Abdurraouf and Muhammad Ali Hamid and Dr. Rayaz, if you can give a bit of light about the special ingredients that would make Qatar. I know Qatar is a small country, but there are special ingredients that would actually make it an attractive part for pharma. So I think it would be really nice to really highlight this, and maybe for Abhishek after that to share your feedback in terms of if there is a one piece or 2 pieces of technology that maybe we can bring to elevate what we have today in Qatar. We would love to hear that. But I think Abhishek, it would be really great to hear what are the strengths that we have here in Qatar in terms of why would pharma come here. And maybe Dr. Abdurraouf, Muhammad Ali Hamid, and Dr. Rayaz, I would love to hear.
Hamid, you want to go ahead?
Sure, I can start. So again, from our perspective, what we see here in Qatar is that this is when it comes to clinical trials, we are a relatively new ecosystem, and I think that this is an advantage rather than a disadvantage for us, because what this means is that we have the opportunity to shape the regulatory landscape. We have the opportunity to shape what the technology landscape looks like. And by the way, when it comes to technology, when it comes to all of these things, it's not a question about capability. It's a question about the governance and the will to kind of put it all together. It's more of an operational thing than a capability thing. So when you talk about capability specifically, like I mentioned before, we have a very, very strong genomics and biobanking infrastructure here between Sidra Medicine and the Qatar Precision Health Institute, which is very unique for Qatar. So what that really means is that we have very rich, highly characterized patient population and the data to go along with it, which is somewhat harmonized, but there is still that missing piece of visibility, right? And I think, again, like we said, the data is integrated, but the problem is we haven't yet figured out how to put this data in front of the right stakeholders so that we can take the best advantage of this. We also have some areas where we have very, very deep expertise, and maybe this is where I'm speaking a little bit more about Sidra, and maybe Abdul can comment on his side as well. But for example, we have deep expertise in pediatrics. We have deep expertise in oncology, in rare disease, and in metabolic disease, right? And this is what we see that is the most attractive for pharma companies that come and want to work with Sidra. We have world-class clinicians and researchers here as well. So I think that the capability and the infrastructure is all there. It's just waiting for the right governance to be put in place to bring it all together and make this information visible to not just to pharma companies. I think we have to start with ourselves. So our clinicians and our clinical trials operations units need to be able to see this information quickly and in a well curated manner, and then obviously putting this in front of external parties like pharma companies, for example.
Yeah, and for multiple use, whether it's data retrieval for recruitment or maybe identifying, stratifying patients for the trial, because if you see their data, you are able to optimize and enrich for potential responders versus non-responders. And the beautiful thing is really there is no legacy systems today. So exactly as you said, we don't actually have to build over legacy system or destroy something. We have a clean slate, and this goes back, Abhishek, to what you said in your final slide. The opportunity is now, and this is what technology is offering that everybody could actually come to the race at the same line now. I mean, without the technology, you have people who are ahead, people are behind, and I think it's whoever really comes and sees the moment is the one who can be in the race. So thanks for that. Dr. Abdul Raouf, in terms of Hamad and generally in Qatar, where do you see Qatar's strength here, besides what Dr. Muhammad Ali mentioned about, the genomics, the pediatrics, and the infrastructure?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mohammed. You have touched on most of the things which are competitive advantage that we have in Qatar. I would touch upon what is actually Qatar unique about. So, for example, Dr. Abhishek was talking about decentralized IRBs, and you do have defragmented data. So these are the things which Qatar can give a sponsor a value for conducting trials in Qatar. Qatar is based on a foundation where it is already done for a clinical research, but only thing what we require is building the capacity. When I talk about foundation, we are talking about high-class healthcare institutes, experienced researchers, integrated data system, centralized electronic data system. Where do you find all this elsewhere? So we are quite competent in that. So these are the things which delay most of the part. But only thing what we need to see is you need to have a streamlined governance, regulations, all this. So probably that is what I will be looking at. Another thing Dr. Riaz Malik was talking about, Dr. Riaz Malik works very closely with us. We are like brothers. We work in CTU. A lot of trials are going on with him. So his question is all about if a sponsor comes to me and asks me, what is the prevalence of this disease? Is it a rare disease? Do you have patience for this. See, this data is lying somewhere inside, and it's all centralized. People are not getting access to it. There should be a way how you get access to it, right? So what happens in HMC is now the sponsors don't go to researchers, rather they come to CTU for feasibility, to look at the prevalence, to look at what is your recruitment rates, what is the patient dropouts, patient recruitments, and how long it takes for this. So we provide that information, but this is manual again.
And it takes time. It takes
a lot of time.
Yeah.
So this is where your agentic AI can help us, as you're talking about layers. So rather than staying in different buckets, I had a meeting last week with US and Qatar University, which they're working on a project called as a call to a roadmap to biopharma, which they're looking at agentic AI. The first part of it is, again, agentic AI you have to feed, otherwise it does not analyze based on it, right? So this is what happens. You have centralized data, you're going to feed that in. You're going to feed the regulations, and you're going to feed everything that is possible so that it's a one-stop shop that can lie anywhere. It could be the ministry, it could be the QRDI, it could be in CTU, it could be in Sidra, it doesn't matter. So people can directly go and access and they find out. That would be much more easier, right from the prevalence stage to what would the outcomes, what are the funding, budgeting, everything should go in. This is what I could tell. If you talk about what value can Qatar give, it can give a lot. If you look at our high quality healthcare systems, which are required for producing high quality data, the integrating systems which are there, we have IRB, Reliance IRB with different organizations and institutes within Qatar. So we don't have the issue of IRB, we have a centralized IRB. There is a reliance between all the institutes. You get one IRB approval from one institute, probably that could be extended to another. And you're talking about 90% of healthcare services are provided by HMC. So you're sitting on a big data. And the Cerner is the main data. You don't have to run around. You can track the patient from the time he is enrolled into the trial till the last minute. So this is a unique system, people. So this is what Muhammad Ali says. We need to be visible to the world globally, understand what we could do. So that's what we've been trying all the time. But still, there are bottlenecks which we are working on.
Yes. No, this is really interesting because all of the infrastructure capabilities, it all exists. What actually seems to be always and repeating between the three panelists is really the coordination. So the unified data, which seems to be the one piece of domino that once you really tilt it, everything just falls into place in clinical trial and in other than clinical trials. And that operating model, strong governance in terms of how are we going to coordinate ourselves in Qatar across all of the sites. We remove the operating burden from the site and we really put it in one place that actually deals with this. And then everything else is already there. It's just, I think, maybe really opening up the pipes and making these pipes visible. So before I go to Dr. Malik, because there is one important question I want to ask you. Abhishek, how do you react to what you hear? I mean, the country has all of the capabilities. It's just it's a wiring issue or opportunity, if I don't want to call it issue.
So if I take a step back and to be very frank, I think I'm having this conversation with different shape in different countries, and this is the first time I'm coming across such a well-organized data infrastructure. So maybe I really appreciate and kudos for that, because I have seen there is this hobby horse of people just running to AI with no real data infrastructure, and nobody will do it. So I think, first of all, I want to really appreciate and send kudos that that such a good setup of infrastructure is there. And I totally equal, like, new is advantage. And that is a big advantage someone can have today. And it really resonates. But also, I think what you, Dr. Abdul, mentioned very nicely is, like, maybe it's also a matter of educating the world out there, like what we have. I think that's one. And second, maybe a governance sort of thing, so that we also run more centrally, have a very central governance, have things easily available to everyone, both within the country and value chain, but also to outside, to any sponsors and stuff. So for me, it's a music to the ears that such a good data infrastructure exists.
Yes. No, thank you. And I have two questions before we open up to the floor. Besides what you've emphasized, Dr. Abdurraouf and Muhammad Ali, and also Dr. Rayaz, around the infrastructure and the data, particularly for you, the question, Professor Malik here, there is also the Qatari population and the Gulf population that has a very, for example, let's say when it comes to Novo with all of the, let's say, the Ozempic and the GLP-1, your specialism is on endocrinology, diabetes. Do you believe that you have, in Qatar, we actually can offer pharma a different patient population with a different opportunity or new opportunities for innovation that is not necessarily available elsewhere, for example, in Europe or in the US, because it is a different makeup of population in Qatar versus other places, or maybe GCCs.
Professor Riaz Malik, you are frozen.
Are you with us?
I am.
So
what
I'm trying to emphasize is not only the infrastructure and the capability, is also the patient populations themselves within Qatar are different in terms of like genetic makeup, everything, environmental, everything from, so pharma company would come here not only necessarily because they can find the patient, but they can actually potentially discover novel science here because of the unique patient population that I would actually say is very untapped. In comparison to elsewhere.
Absolutely. And again, you put me on another hobby horse, which is that big pharma doesn't invest in this part of the world. And I can understand from Abhishek's point of view that, maybe the systems were immature before, but honestly, Abhishek, this is your carpe diem moment, right? Mm-hmm. You go back to Novo Nordisk and you tell them that we have got an amazing system in place, but that if you can just turn that switch, you will get an amazing opportunity to be able to do research in obesity, massive, diabetes, massive, right? So rare diseases, again, uniquely set alongside all the genomics and the proteomics in one small system, one small country with 2.5, 3 million people. And, we really have the potential to join this up. So that's what you need to do, Abhishek. You need to go back to Novo Nordisk and tell them that instead of wasting 2 billion on the next big drug, all they need to invest is maybe, 1 or 2 million. But don't wait for people inside Qatar to be developing something in 2 years, right? You need to come with a solution that we can use now. So in the next 6 months, we have the big clinical trial in Qatar.
Yeah, so it is really about a partnership. So this market is actually extremely, I would say, for what Novo is working on. The market is really to see it as a not. I come here and do a clinical trial. This is really a partnership, and investing in the ecosystem in that front will bring competitive advantage to the pharma. So this is a really great, and I think I was going to really ask the last question here, but we've actually answered in various ways. If there is one piece of technology we want to bring into Qatar to get Qatar into the powerhouse capability in clinical trial over the next 5 years, I think the answer is there. We talked about coordination, orchestration, health data centralization, and being able to really retrieve that. Is there anything else Abhishek or anyone would like to add before opening up to a couple of questions from the floor?
I think one other thing that maybe we haven't touched upon, and
yes.
this could be a topic for a whole
yes.
other session, is
definitely.
real world data and real world.
Oh yes. Oh no, we would love to hear that.
Really bring down the cost of clinical trials as well, whether you're using that as a control arm, for example, or whether you're using that as a phase 4, which Abhishek rightly emphasized is also extremely important. We often think about clinical trials as ending at phase 3 when you have the approval for the drug or the device. But I think it's critically important to have those phase 4 type studies as well. And again, there are efforts, obviously. I know at Tسريع we're working towards enabling real-world evidence studies here, but I think within the country as well, this would be something that is beneficial. And this obviously requires also partnership with pharmaceutical companies as well to enable this, because again, we have well-structured, well-characterized data that is ready for real-world evidence applications as well.
Yeah, no, this is a great point, and also just maybe leads to one question that relates to someone's question in the audience as well. It's really about, we talk about the one unified health data. We talked about the AI layers, and this is a question. I mean, Abhishek, when we were at Novartis, we always talked about, we like to build everything internally, and then we never really get there because it's a large organization. And then really the power is partnering with very big players. Let's say, you know them. I mean, we talked before, Dr. Rayaz, about Trinetics. We talked about DataVent. We talked about, instead of actually just trying to build everything internally and being very late and having to really, do all of the hierarchical bureaucracy. Are you more in the mindset of, let's actually say, okay, we want to do this health data, let's bring the best people who've done it, they know how to do it, we just fund it and we get it done. Same thing, let's say, when it comes to the real world data, how do you really extract the information? So I would love to really hear, because one person in the audience said, yes, we can implement AI to improve recruitment time, managing the cost and reduce the cost, but there is an upfront payment we need to make. How do you really calculate your return on investment? And this is where I would like to ask you, Abhishek, here, from the time at Novartis and at Novo, are you more with let's partner rather than build, because potentially this can pay off long term?
Yeah, maybe break into two parts. So first of all, I think we all grow, and I think I have also grown over the course of time. So I feel now, with the speed at which LLM agents are all growing, it's very difficult to build it unless you are a health tech company. Being in pharma, because our infrastructure is more toward running a trial and bringing a drug to market, but not building technical infrastructure. So like one of the vendor name you took for real world data, because one of the assets that we built internally with our vendor partner was to take their real world data, running the clinical trial design on top of the real world data, and to really understand which inclusion exclusion criteria is the most difficult to have in the real world, right? Rather than building internally, we actually partnered with one of the vendor that you mentioned, and we built something with them together. So for me, I think it's now going into a more of a hybrid model, because why I'm saying hybrid is the knowledge also exists internally. Like, say, if I have to build something for Dr. Abdul, the knowledge exists within his team. This vendors can come with the technology, can come with the speed for building digital, but the knowledge always is anchoring within the respective institutional, right? So it has to be that hybrid model where you bring different specialities together. So that's like the first thing that I want to really emphasize upon. That's really happening big time. The second thing is also, I guess, overarching where you are, we always try to build either a tool or a system, but I think we also always need to take the approach of people, process, and technology. So we also need to bring the people on board with them. We need to see the processes, because different country, different pharma, different sponsor have different processes. So how we also bring the people, process, and the technology together into this journey and create that happy path, if I use the word.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely correct. I mean, because the technology is not one size fit all. Yeah. It really needs to understand the people who are running the work. You need to build the internal talent and capabilities, and also see what the workflow is different between different institutions. So 100% agree. And this requires a very strong governance model and operating model to really, and we've seen it so many times, Abhishek, when things don't work because there is no strong operating model. Who's doing what are the roles and responsibility, what are the KPIs we want to really collect to measure success and say that we have actually achieved that. So no, thanks for that. I have one question. I think we probably need to wrap up in 5 minutes. I have a question that is how can combination of modern data management technologies such as blockchain, federated learning, and AI-driven EHR or electronic data capture systems improve data integrity, patient privacy, and regulatory compliance in multi-center clinical trials? I don't know whether you have any feedback on that, anyone from the floor? I think probably maybe the context, because the conversation talks about federated learning, perhaps I think the question comes from if there is an external party, so let's say you have a pharma company want to really access this data lake that is created in Qatar, where does federated learning come to the picture? Because this is really where you keep all of the data anonymous, and I don't know where we are in this thinking. Yeah, Muhammad Ali, please.
I think the thing is that, like Abhishek pointed out, and like you just mentioned as well, I think the important thing is that there are tech companies that are creating these solutions. So I think we, as a nation, a nascent ecosystem, we don't have to really look into this. I think the best thing for us is, this is not our area of core competencies. The best thing for us to do is to partner with these companies who specialize in building these tools, and there are many out there, and to leverage these to get these outcomes that the question is asking about. That's the smart thing to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And maybe just to add to a point, I totally agree. And also we need to be focused in investing, and we need to also have a discipline, because also what I have seen is like everything seems lucrative, and then we start too many track, and we are not able to bring, let's say, one of the track to completion. So we also need to be focused in terms of where we want to invest and where we also want to go toward, maybe more in terms of what is our short-term vision versus what is our long-term vision, and then to do, let's say, a bit of focused discovery and focused work in that area.
Yeah, no, this also links to a question that I just got from some of the participants talking about how could Qatar looks like. Imagine, forget that there is any constraints and regulations, funding, pharma partnership. What should it look like 5 years from now or 10 years from now to really to be considered as a benchmark in the region and also globally? And I think probably this really links to Abhishek, what you're saying. If we know where we want to head at the end, then we can work backwards to see what we need to do to get there, but also keep it with a very clear roadmap, and not to try to do everything at the same time. Yeah. So maybe just to close here, if anyone from the panelists, if you would actually say, we are sitting here 5 years from now, and the Qatar is, the clinical trial capabilities within Qatar have really achieved, global, already is, but I mean even higher global presence, visibility, benchmark. If you want to say with one word or two words, what needs to happen for that to take place? Muhammad Ali, what is your one or two?
In one word, I would go back to my comment about visibility. I think we need to become visible.
So data visibility.
Yes. And that's really the first, as you put it, the first domino that has to fall, because everything else comes after that.
Yeah. And what about the coordination within after that?
The visibility is kind of the broader term, but all of that needs to happen in the background, right? So bringing all the data together, setting up the governance, so not just one institution, but all the institutions bringing their data together and curating it in a way that is accessible for us internally, and then for people outside that might be interested in that data. So that's really what I mean by visibility, and it involves all that coordination, involves all that infrastructure, the governance to be built.
Yeah, and when this happens, everything falls into place. Professor Malik, I know what you're going to answer. I think this is, I would love to hear again, because you were the person who opened up about the data being in one place. Do you still think this is what needs to happen?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's my word, but I dare I say it, whether it's Trinetics or it's any other off-the-shelf solution,
do it.
We not wait to develop something in-house. Otherwise, in 5 years' time, I can guarantee you we will be in the same place that we are today. We are not going to move on. And I have had conversations 3-4 years ago, actually, suggesting we should do this, and nothing's happened. That needs to change. Rana, you need to do it.
Okay, great. No, thank you. This is a wonderful call for action. I love that. Dr. Abdurraouf.
For me, it is very clear again, Mohammed was telling visibility is important. But before the visibility, what we need to see is our competitive advantage. With our competitive advantage, we are really eligible and we have the ability to provide and conduct high quality clinical trials, which we can compete with anyone in the region. So the only way to do that is doing a small flagship clinical trials so that the companies would have confidence in us. That opens up the whole thing. And if this happens, I can tell you within 5 years, we could be a hub for any data-driven and digital-driven clinical trial research in Qatar.
Yeah, from recruitment to real-world data to patient stratification to everything.
And we are doing a couple of real-world data studies with NOAA.
Yes. Yeah.
So we are already with that. And we have this concept of real-world data since 15 years in HMS, because I was a member of Pharmacy and Therapeutic Committee where we do something called as drug use evaluation. Basically, that's another name. It's a tricky word, but it's a real-world data. The only way you do it in a systematic way, real-world data. So we have got a couple of studies sponsored by the companies. That should help us a lot. So we've been doing it, as I said, it is the governance, putting things together and making everybody aware about the clinical trials, building the capacity. That's it. We are down.
That's it. Simple. Abhishek, I think you heard from the Qatar experts internally. If that happens, what will Pharma do?
They will just jump over it.
Yeah?
No, but I think...
Anything else you will add?
No, I totally echo. I guess
this is the piece that needs to happen.
And the visibility, and also Dr. Atria said, I think I totally agree with all three of you.
Yeah.
I will take action item, and I guarantee I don't know how much it will move the edge. I will also pass some of this visibility feedback back into some of my friends who does global feasibility in terms of the infrastructure that Qatar has.
That's
I will
great.
pass that feedback for sure.
Amazing.
But yes, the visibility, and let's do it now.
Yeah. No, really, thank you so much. I think we are going to close, but I love that we were able to have this open conversation, and then we came out with one action point: visibility, coordination, this health thing. And I think this is there is a call for action at the end of this panel. So hopefully it was useful for everybody who attended, also for the panelists. It was extremely useful for me, for sure. And thank you so much. We will find another opportunity to continue the dialogue, but not only dialogue, also make things happen. Thank you very much. And with this, I close the panel. Thank you.